Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're going to explore a really quiet story, but a powerful one, about how two very different communities learn to see each other not as strangers, but as neighbors.
And this is where it all starts, with a simple, yet incredibly powerful act of separation. A quiet line drawn in the dirt that created a very clear us and a them.
All right, so let's take a closer look at this world, a traditional Mennonite colony down in rural Mexico. We're going to try and understand what these fences really stood for, because, they weren't just made of wire and wood.
Yeah, that fence was so much more than physical. It was this deep line between two profoundly different ways of life. On one side, you had the Mennonites, living by the Ordnung. That's their strict code of community rules, and speaking their own German dialect. And then, on the other side, their Mexican neighbors, a world that to them seemed vibrant and chaotic, a world of the unknown.
You can really feel it in this quote, right? From Mennonites like Jakob Friesen, just going to the local market was like stepping into another reality. It captures that overwhelming sensory experience. It was a place they needed for trade, but it was a world away from their quiet, ordered life back in the colony.
And here's what's so interesting. Despite that separation, their neighbors totally understood their core identity. They weren't seen as hostile or weird. They were defined by their most visible value, their commitment to peace. The peaceful ones. It's a name that was both a description and, maybe, a potential bridge.
But here's the thing about fences. They can't completely stop human curiosity, or kindness for that matter. Pretty soon, these little interactions started to create tiny openings. And we're not talking about grand gestures here, just simple human whispers across the line.
So one of the first really significant moments wasn't some formal meeting, it was just a gift. A young neighbor, Luis Ortega, shows up at the gate. There's no big speech, no asking for anything in return, just a sack of oranges and a few simple words. Para usted. For you.
And this small act of connection was seen as something just precious. The way the oranges are described as glowing like gold, that tells you everything you need to know about the impact of this unexpected kindness. It was this moment of pure human connection that just leaped right over the divide.
And it wasn't a one-off thing. These individual acts, a borrowed plow here, a helping hand after a storm there, they led to this huge shift in perception on both sides of that fence. Whispers started to replace the old assumptions, and slowly, the unknown world started to have a familiar human face.
But this growing connection also created a whole new tension. As friendships started to form, so did the fear of losing their identity. The elder's warning really highlights the core conflict. How do you connect with the world outside without getting completely swallowed up by it?
And that brings us to the real turning point. This is the moment where all those quiet whispers and small gestures turned into a conscious effort to actually communicate, to truly understand each other.
The first real move toward an official dialogue actually came from the outside. A local teacher reached out to the Mennonite bishop, and it wasn't a challenge, it was a respectful invitation. The goal was so simple and so profound, not to change each other, but to understand.
And the response from the bishop is just perfect. It's rooted in their own faith, and it shows the new willingness to live out their values in a different way. See, he's not compromising their beliefs. Instead, he's using their scripture to justify opening the door to understanding. What a powerful moment of applying old principles to a totally new situation.
This whole idea of building a bridge is captured so beautifully in this interaction between two young girls, Elena and Maria. They had no shared language, but they found common ground in the world all around them. They started teaching each other simple words for a goat, for the sky, and for thank you.
And right there, that gets to the heart of this entire story. It's about a choice, a conscious choice. The adults had built fences out of caution and out of tradition, but the children, without all that baggage, they just naturally built a bridge born out of simple curiosity and friendship.
So where did all this lead? What was the ultimate result of all these small cumulative acts? Did the whole community just abandon its traditions? Did the fences come tumbling down? Well, let's see. What's so important to get here is that this new connection didn't mean losing their identity. Not at all. The core tenets of their life, the ordning, the faith, the simple dress, all of that stayed. The change was internal. Fear was replaced by this kind of cautious openness, an acceptance of the warmth and the humanity of their neighbors.
So they found this new balance, this new equilibrium. They figured out a way to maintain their principles and their very distinct way of life,
while also being seen, understood, and engaged with by the world around them. They were still separate, just as their faith dictated, but the whole nature of that separation had fundamentally changed.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on, doesn't it? This story about fences and bridges, about oranges and whispered words, it might just be a lot more universal than we think. It asks us to look at the lines we draw in our own lives and to really consider what it might take, not to erase them, but maybe just to build a simple bridge across.